Hey, what's up? What's up, everyone? We're live here on the Baitman stream. Baitman live tonight, and we got a special guest coming on tonight, Mr. Emil Wagner. Emil just recently qualified for the Bassmaster Elite Series. So let's see, why is it not? I need to put this on Facebook as well. So here we go. So we should be streaming to both Facebook and YouTube now. So if you're joining me on either one of them, I hope you guys have a good night. Thanks for joining. I've got Emil Wagner. He texted me. He said he's on his way back from the lake. Obviously, he's not deer hunting this time of year. He's still out fishing. But we're going to talk about him and his journey to get to the Elite Series. This is having trouble streaming to Facebook. Of course it is. Okay. Let me mess with StreamYard here for a second, see if I can't get it going on Facebook as well. Save changes. Let's go. What's up, Darius? What's up, Dax? But Emil is from like Lake Lanier, that area. But it's been a bit since I've done a stream. YouTube absolutely hates me right now. Like, I literally put content up and it might get 10 views. Facebook doesn't like me either. I don't know what's going on. I guess maybe there's too much fishing content out there. Maybe I just don't post enough. But I have been fishing a little bit. Trying to get my jig head minnow game on point. So I am learning the live scope slowly, but it's pretty cool. I just, I keep a crankbait tied on and some other things. Big top water seems to really been the deal for me is if I can find some feeding fish that big Magnum catwalk or something like that seems to get a bite. But got some bad news about the bait room. I've got a roof leak. I got a brand new roof last year, and ever since I've got this roof, my bait rooms had some condensation, and right now it seems like I've got a roof leak, which is not good. And I've texted the roofers, no response. So it said it was like a 7 or 8 year warranty on the roof. Well, it ain't good if I'm getting a leak. But so I'm going to have to start getting a lot of stuff out of here and moving it. But anyway, do me a favor, guys. Make sure you hit the like button, share it to social media or whatnot. There's so many people streaming these days. The product is kind of getting watered down, in my opinion. But we're going to do our best tonight, whether we got 15 viewers or 100 viewers. But I did get some new baits in. I haven't bought a lot of baits this year, but I did get something I'd like to show you guys. And be available at Tackle Warehouse very soon. But my buddy Matt McKee over there at McKee Outdoors, he got these in. This is the new Buka 6-inch trick shad. This is the ABS version. So for all you guys that have been wanting a Buka Glide but don't want to spend the $180 or whatever it is for one like this one over here, this is the 8-inch resin trick shad. You can get the 6-inch trick shad, the Buka brand. And so I just got a couple of them. I got 3 of them in. Can't wait to go play with this. I'll get one out of the package here. Show you guys while we're waiting for Emil to join in. We're definitely going to ask him some swim baiting questions. What's up, Max? So here it is. It's got a really nice soft tail on it. So this is a little softer tail than comes with the resin version. This is called Blue Bone. Very similar to like a blue glimmer color. Man, that thing looks really good. Looks really good on camera. We should be in HD these days. So that's a 6-inch. So this is a little preview. I really like this one. This is kind of a Kentucky Lake color for me. Definitely have caught a lot of fish on like Mike Russell's Blue Glimmer he makes. What's up, Sean? Thanks for joining us, buddy. And you do get, when you buy one of these, you do get a spare tail in here. So this is going to be a really good beginner's glide. This one's going to be nice to throw on something where you don't have to spend $500. Yeah, fix my lens. It's all foggy for some reason. You don't have to spend $500 on a swim bait setup. Honestly, you could probably use like a 7.5 foot cranking rod to use this. You want something. You'll want something with a tip on it, because this bait is meant to be chopped, almost work back and forth like a spook, fish high in the upper water column. But that's the blue bone. Let's see what other colors I got here. I've got this other one here. This is called Threadfin Magic. Let's check it out. This is old school Baitman right here. We're just busting open packages and looking at baits. When Emil gets on here, we'll talk about some spotted bass baits. This one looks really cool. This is Threadfin Magic. Very good looking bait. Got kind of a purple green on the back. A smoky color tail. These look well built too. Now these are ABS. These are not resin. It's Threadfin Magic. These will be in at Tackle Warehouse pretty soon. There's Emil. He's popping in here. He's popping in while I'm showing off my glide baits. And then the last color I got, this Buka Trick Shad, the 6-inch, is a gizzard color. So I kind of like this one too. It's very similar to the one I have custom painted. Got a little purple on the head. It's a gold, green back. So that is the 6-inch Buka brand Trick Shad, which is the ABS version of Buka's really famous 8-inch, 7-inch Trick Shad. But Emil has popped on here. So I'm going to toss these baits somewhere. I want to start talking to him. I'll clean it up later. I'm going to get him right in here. He just come off the lake. Emil, can you hear me, buddy?
Yeah, man. What's up?
Well, this is the Baitman show, and I was waiting for it. I got new baits in, so I had to show the people what I got. I don't know if you're a swim bait guy, but
you probably got a way better collection than I do.
No, actually, I don't. I used to have a big collection, and I got this deal where I was buying more of them than I was actually fishing, so I condensed a lot.
I got one for you. Hold on. I haven't even thrown it yet, but I got my hand on like 5 Hinkle shads. I painted 3 of them. They're pretty badass.
Well, I've never had a Hinkle, and I need to get one.
Yeah, you and about 20 of my buddies.
Yeah, a guy that's a friend of mine, friend of the show here. His name's Mike Russell. He had some blanks the other day, and they're already spoken for. I at least got to hold one. So
yeah.
But I kind of got this deal where I was buying up all these swim baits, and I really found myself only fishing like 3 or 4 of them. So I kind of did a mass sale. I really I like Buka's Trick Shad, a bull glide. I always like a bull shad. And then I throw fish everything paperweight a lot. And then I like the 6-inch draw from 6 cents and like an S Waver. And I've got a few others. There's one called a Shizzard that I can't even find anymore. I don't think they make it. And a buddy of mine broke one off. He still owes me one, but it's hard to get one when they don't make it. But somebody said the volume is low, so I'm going to try to crank up the volume a little bit here.
Chad shad. I don't know if you throw out in the KGB Chad shad. I weighed in a few on it this year, but that's really the only one I've thrown a bunch in tournaments anyway. But.
Yeah, I had a KGB Chad shad and I had a regular Chad shad. Again, that was just bait. I know it catches fish. I couldn't get it to work for what I'm trying to do. So that's a really popular one, and obviously people love it because it catches fish. But it's kind of like you said, and this is the reason I brought Emil on the show. So I'm watching Facebook or TikTok. I can't remember which one. and the Fish North of Georgia podcast pops up. I really like his stuff. He does a good job. And it says most overrated lure, and Emil pops off. Most overrated lure is a whopper plopper.
Heck
And I
yeah.
commented, I agree with this man. And I'm just gonna let in. What's your reasoning for the whopper plopper being so overrated?
Man, I've thrown it a bunch. I remember when it first came out. I was probably like 14 or so, and we were throwing them in the ponds a bunch, and we caught the crap out of them. But since then, I've tried it on a bunch of the lakes I've been to, and dude, I just never catch them on it. It's as simple as that. I actually at Martin, the last Open, the three biggest fish I caught in practice were on a Chapo. I didn't catch any on it in the tournament, of course, but no, man, I just every time I picked it up, I just usually don't catch much on it. But I know that Ozarks region or whatever seems to be where it really plays the biggest tournament role anyway. But man, I'd rather throw a buzzbait or a spook personally.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't want to say anything bad because Sixth Sense has a plopper style bait coming out, and I'll definitely throw it. But I'm kind of in the same ballpark as you. Honestly, I have more success on old school style buzz bait or a big spook, something like that. And that's been for years. I mean, I remember when the whopper plopper really just kind of come on. So you said you're about 14, I'm 39, so that's probably about 10 years ago.
Yeah, 10 or 12.
And yeah, I mean, everybody was buying them. You get them, man. There's people every day. You got to get the bone, or you got to get powder or black.
The monkey butt, yeah.
Monkey butt, man. And you could sell them as fast as they come in. Guys were really catching them. And I would tie one on, and I couldn't get a sniff. And then I tie on a buzz bait. Bam, I catch one. But that Ozark area, Table Rock, Bull Shoals, those lakes, Lake of the Ozarks, it's a staple this time of year. I mean, if you're not throwing it, I mean, you're behind.
Right. Right. And I've even like on Lanier and these herring lakes, obviously we throw topwater a bunch. So I've tried it out there, but I just don't think it's natural enough. The water's so clear and like I don't know. I haven't caught much on it.
Well, since you said you're about 14 or 15, that was 10 or 12 years ago. Let's get a little introduction for the guys that don't know you, Emil. How old are you? And how'd you kind of get started bass fishing? I've heard you got a pretty interesting story.
Yeah, I'm 26. So I started fishing really like ever since I could remember. Like I don't have like a specific day. I've just been doing it literally ever since I could walk. And I didn't really have like my dad doesn't fish. I never had a mentor or anything like that. I just always showed an interest for it. I mean, my dad like fished a little bit or whatever, but never for bass. Like he grew up in Denmark. I was born in Denmark. We moved over here. And I guess I asked him about it actually a week or two ago because someone else had asked me, and I was like, "How? Like, did you? Like, I don't. For whatever reason, we hadn't talked about it. I was like, did you like get me into this?" And he was like, "No, you just kind of wanted to go fishing all the time." So he obviously, helped me get a rod and reel. And man, we had this pond in the neighborhood. I'd go down to every freaking chance I could, and that progressed into middle school. And me and one of my best friends, William, we took his canoe with his trolling motor out every freaking weekend we could after school, whatever. And I didn't even really know tournament, or I knew tournament fishing was a thing. Like I watched Bassmasters and all that, but I didn't know high school fishing was a thing. But I figured it out right before we went into high school. Started the team in ninth grade, fished all 4 years of high school, loved it, and just ever since then. It's pretty much all I've done. Pretty much consumes my whole life, but I love it for sure.
Yeah, you've become a pretty hot name, especially now that you qualified for the Bassmaster Elite Series. I mean, years ago, would you ever think, man, I'm going to be on the Bassmaster Elite Series?
It was always like a thought, like, oh my, I'd always say it to like friends and stuff. And we were just like, yeah, whatever. Like, when you're young, it's like you think of that stuff. It might be a little different now just with how big everything is. But at least when I was around that age, like I always knew I wanted to do it, but I was like, yeah, that's a far cry. I'm probably going to get a regular job and do whatever. But the fact that it's actually happened is pretty crazy. I think you get kind of consumed just in the whole process. So you forget that, there was a point where you didn't even think it was a reality, but it's definitely nuts. I mean, I've been watching the Elite since I was probably 12. So it's going to be awesome going and
That's
fishing
pretty
again.
awesome. You know, that open schedule, it's grueling. So to come out able to qualify for the Lake Series, it just shows how versatile of an angler you really are. I
Save
got
me
a
some
question.
money too.
Yeah, I got a question here. Max 813. He says, "Does Emil have a specialty or a particular technique or lure?" So let's
Yeah,
go ahead and
man.
dive into that. What's your specialty? You know,
Man,
everyone has the stigma of these young guys. They're all scopers, but I have a feeling you're a little bit more than that.
yeah, that's a tough one. Like, because around it, if I'm talking about herring lakes, my specialty is calling them up 100%. Like top waters, flukes, hard swim baits, all that stuff. That's damn near all I throw from like May to probably mid early November, and then it switches to a worm for me for a lot of the winter time and a crankbait. But if I had to really say something, I feel like I'm like really good at, it would be throwing a shaky head and a drop shot, whether it's on live scope, without live scope. I mean, we had a TAA no live scope tournament this year. I caught almost 20 pounds a day, and damn near every one of them was on a shaky head. And I just have so much confidence in that bait and a drop shot. And like, kind of, if you watch Cody Meyer fish it, like he's always throwing it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, if I need to get bit or just get through an event, I throw a worm a ton. But I'd say a worm, a crankbait, and probably a top water. Those are my three favorite things for sure. Throw a
I
top water a lot.
I could get down with that. That's you know, you throw a swim bait or spinner bait in there. I'm that's you're pretty much talking to me. I fished Lake Lanier years ago. I actually did a little video with the guys that started Swarming Hornet Lures, and it
Oh
was a
yeah,
guy from Rick Steckelberg. You know
dude.
who I'm talking about?
Yeah, not to cut you off, but I met Rick Steckelberg in probably my second or third ever tournament. I was fishing a ditch. I was like 15 years old. I fished it solo, didn't know anyone. And dude, it was the dumbest thing. I'll never forget it. I was back there and I hooked this giant, and I had my net from when I pond fished, and it
Oh
couldn't
yeah,
even fit in the net, and I lost it. And like this other boat was back there, and I turned around and it was Rick, and he had like pulled in and started fishing the same ditch. And we like chopped it up for a while. He gave me some custom underspins and like some other stuff. But dude, he's a good dude.
yeah, he is. So I got to fishing with him for like 2 days, and you know, it's definitely different than Kentucky Lake as far as like the layout and everything. But you know, they're fishing brush piles, they're triangulating, they're throwing marker buoys. There's
Yeah,
no forward facing or anything, and the maps weren't even that good at this time. But it really didn't fish a whole lot different than I like to fish here. But they were drop shotting, underspin, and they were really actually showing me kind of the shaky head deal there.
yeah.
It's a really cool lake, and I feel like it's really versatile.
It is, dude. You can learn a lot. And I think growing up, I kind of thought coming from a herring lake, it would be tough to adjust to a lot of the other, places we go. But dude, this place has taught me so much. And probably number one is just being efficient. Like it teaches you just not to sit anywhere long. And I've been able to take that to almost everywhere I go, with the exception of like if I'm on a river or, a grass lake or something. But it's freaking awesome.
Yeah. So now I heard this. Your family wasn't really big into fishing or anything, not into bass fishing. They're not. Are they from Denmark? Correct.
Yeah, my whole family was born there. I'm one of seven, so my two older siblings were born there. I was born there, and then we moved over here for my dad's job, and we were only supposed to stay for a couple years, and we ended up just staying, forever, which I'm happy we did. I always tell everyone I've been back a ton, and I like it over there, but I'm happy I live here. So
Yeah.
I definitely wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I lived in Denmark. But my whole family lives over there, outside of my parents and my siblings, and yeah, we speak Danish every day. So I've got dual citizenship. I'm definitely a Dane, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool though. I mean, it just shows you that just because you're not from the U.S. or South Africa's popular or Japan,
Yeah,
that you can still learn bass fishing and be at a high level. And I like
yeah,
the fact that we're got people from different backgrounds, especially on the Elite Series.
yeah.
Here's a good question. This is one I was probably going to ask you too. All right, since the Opens were such a gauntlet, you can't really have a bad single day or especially a bad tournament. What was the most difficult thing you actually had to deal with this past season?
Probably the third tournament of the year. I finished 189th.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, I literally finished dead last, pretty much. And I had the lowest finish of anyone in the top 9. I know that. And after that, I was just kind of like, year's probably done. We'll try to learn and see what happens. And ended up just having a miracle streak after that. And I don't know if that had to be the low point though. After that, after I remember putting my boat on the trailer after that second day, and I don't know if I've ever been that defeated, like ever since I've started tournament fishing. But that was definitely the low point of the season. But I mean, every tournament has its own set of challenges. I mean, Mississippi River, I had a really good event there, and I was not on crap, and I was freaking out. And then the last full day of practice, I finally found them, and stuff like that, can be stressful. But probably just climbing out of that hole after the third event.
Yeah, 189th. That's pretty stout if you're going for the low end. But it sounds like mentally you kind of, you understand what you got to do. And one thing you talked about earlier, you just barely mentioned it. You said, "Thank God I ain't got to spend that much money anymore." How does that money? Does that really stress you guys out fishing the opens, knowing that?
I'll be honest with you. I guide full time at home, and
Right.
this was the first year I had sponsor money as well. And I'm not going to sit here and act like if I didn't make it, I would be financially hurting. I mean, it would have. You never want to fish the opens forever. I looked at it, the other day, and I didn't even know, but I actually came out in the green, just in tournament winnings. So I would have been, fine, I think, either way. But it's definitely easy to have a rough couple years in the opens. I mean, you see it. There's some really good freaking fishermen that are on their third, fourth, fifth year in the opens. So, but no, I mean, I come home, like if I have a 2 week gap between tournaments, I'm guiding, and I make really good money doing that and enjoy it. So it's
Do you
not
feel
the world for me if I didn't qualify, but I definitely wanted to, just because you don't want to do the opens forever. And now, I can get to the elites, and also I'm going to try to get in the Toyota Championship. I'm going to try to get back in the All-American. I got all kinds of stuff I want to do. And when you're doing all 9 opens, it made any of that other stuff impossible.
Yeah. So what do you think about the new open schedule? Do you like the format where they split it up in 2 qualifier divisions, and then you got, was it 3 or 4 tournaments for a fish off? Do you think
Yeah.
that kind of alleviates some of the guys from spending that much money, or it kind of separates the guys that have the highest potential to qualify from guys that are just fishing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not to be negative, but I don't really understand why they did it personally. I mean, I guess you save the time of 2 less events, and then the EQs are now a higher entry, so I think the money is about the same. But I guess it helps the guys who maybe fish those 4 and don't make the 50, then they don't have to waste any more of their like if they didn't want to, if you're out of it after 4, it sucks because you're out those deposits. So, for the rest of the season. So I get it for those guys, but I really like the way they had it now. And I felt like there was like way more hype around the opens than there'd ever been.
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you made that top 9, like it was undisputably like those were the best 9 that year. So I really liked how they had it going like that, but this is cool too. I think it's, a good happy medium for what they had now and, what they had before. So,
Yeah. So you mentioned Cody Meyer, and Cody is a really good friend of mine. I know him pretty well. He don't return my text till like a month later, but we're not going to say nothing about that. He's a big college football fan too. But I like what you said about Cody. He keeps it pretty simple. And when I knew he moved to the opens, trying to qualify for the elites, I thought, I think he's got a really legit shot in doing it the first year. And you kind of seen it. He doesn't like in contention to win very much, but he is going to be in contention to make a top 10 a lot.
yeah,
And
dude,
I really like his style of fishing.
He's sneaky good. I got to know him this year, and he's just always lobbing a Cinco, a chatterbait, and something else around. And he's really good at, I think, just getting around them and catching them, and just not zipping around too much. But yeah, dude, The dude's a hammer. I mean, it was every tournament. I was like, maybe, he'll stumble. Nope. Top 40.
Yeah. Well, since this is the Baitman show, let's talk some baits. So you got on Lake Lanier, you said you're a top water worm kind of guy. What's your go-to top waters there on Lake Lanier? Is this stuff you like to move really fast?
Yeah, so sometimes yes, sometimes no. And dude, if you looked in my top water box, like from when they first get out there to right now, we're on like the last week or two of it, just because we've had a prolonged warm weather compared to normal. But dude, I've got a lot, and it's weird because you'll have like a 2 week period where they're chewing something. Like, we throw a chug bug's like a classic around here. It doesn't really get thrown anywhere else, but like right when they get out there, or I'm sure it does, but like I just don't hear about it that much.
Oh no, a lot of people on the channel, they like the old school bait, so it's cool that you mentioned the chug bug.
Yeah, man, a chug bug's like been an OG around here forever, and like right when they first get out, they usually eat that thing really good, and then they might get on a pencil popper, and then like I throw like right now it's really tough, and I've been throwing that Berkeley Driftwalker 90 little guy just because it's been sunny, slick, calm, and they're on every fall. They get on these little like thumbnail size shad, and they're the fish on Lanier are the smartest I've ever seen them by far. Like they're really hard to catch. They're big, but they're really smart. So like you always got to pay attention to like those little adjustments. But dude, we throw a lot of stuff, and I mean that, like popper style baits, skinny, thin, little top waters. I mean, guys catch them on risers here, but yeah, I mean that drift walker and then probably like a chugging style bait are my two favorite.
Now, when you're not targeting spotted bass, are you using the same kind of baits for largemouth, or are you going up more maybe around shallow cover?
Lanier, the spotted bass fishing, so the spots have gotten so big that you almost can't fish for largemouth anymore unless they're spawning. Like if you want a chance at winning a tournament, with the exception of in the fall, sometimes like I remember I won a 3-fish tournament last fall, and I went and threw a buzzbait for an hour and caught a 7-pounder, which was, you do that like it's total, like a luck thing. Mm-hmm. So, other than that, if I'm targeting largemouth, they usually come out there herring fishing for spotted bass. Like you'll catch a random big one out there, especially in the fall. It's just, you can't really predict when they're going to show up, but they'll get out there with the spots too.
So when I was at Lanier, those guys were also throwing a double top water rig. They had like 2 poppers on.
Oh yeah.
Is that something you experiment with?
Dude, they've done some crazy crap. I mean, every stupid configuration, and I've tried a bunch of them, but I normally still come back to just the one bait because I've just found that whether it's a double fluke rig, 2 top waters, whatever, it's usually more of a pain than it's worth, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's just me personally. Like I would have to double up on it a lot for it to be worth it. But yeah, dude, I remember back in the day, guys would do 2 chug bugs, like take the back treble hook, chug bug on the back, and front runners. I mean, double flukes, all kinds of crap.
Yeah, front runner deals kind of come back. You had Bill Lewis come out with their version of it because a lot of guys were searching for those, Norman front runners. Guys here still use them quite a bit, but it's crazy when we throw top water, especially here in the fall. I'm throwing it over 2 foot, maybe 3-4 foot of water, fishing gravel bars and really flats in the backs of the bays. Are you fishing that shallow, or are you still fishing for these spotted bass over the tops of brush and 30, 40 feet of water?
Yeah, so sometimes they're on brush, sometimes they're on a rock pile, sometimes they're just sitting on a point or a hump because they just want to be there. But yeah, typically they're going to be 10 to 40 foot, but you're looking for them in the right part of the water column, whether it's 10 feet or 40 feet or even 60 feet out there over the channel. The main thing is just that you want the fish in probably, I'd say 15 is about the max you're going to get them to come up from. I've seen them, if they're really chewing, they'll come up from like 20, but 15 typically is kind of your range. But yeah, I'm looking for them out there offshore. When we're throwing the worm, I catch a bunch of them dirt shallow, especially the biggest ones, but like less than 5 foot.
Really?
But yeah, for the top water, it's mostly out there over brush, offshore.
So you same color deal? Is it a chrome or bone deal, or I always hear this thing about spotted bass. Got to have some chartreuse or something bright. Do you ever see yourself or you're ever throwing any of these wild colors, or do you just stick to pretty natural stuff?
No, I've tried it all, and that's like the one thing you don't have to overcomplicate. You need a clearish one, whether it's the clear colors with the chartreuse top or whatever, just something with a clear base. You need a chrome one. That's number one for me. And you need like a bone or a white or something like that if it's cloudy. But that's all you need. It doesn't matter if it's chrome with a blue top or clear with some whatever. I mean, they're looking at the base of it. Those spots are coming up so fast. Like a little piece of blue or chartreuse isn't going to be the difference. That's my opinion. But when I'm top water fishing, you just need that. I think it's the silhouette's the big thing, because you go out there on a sunny day, you throw a bone topwater out there. I'm not saying you won't get bit, but dude, they'll freaking laugh at you. They will not eat that thing.
So when it's bright and sunny, that's when you want the clear
or chrome.
Or chrome.
Usually
I always say if it ain't bone or chrome, you can leave the rest at home.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, I kind of texted you about this. My buddy Ryan Coleman, he owns Spot Sticker Baits, and he said you used his spinner baits before, but he was kind of the first guy I remember, other than War Eagle, that made that compact burning spinner bait. Is that something guys still do at Lanier quite a bit? I know you said you don't throw it as much anymore, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, we evolve as anglers, find different things, but guys still really burn those spinner baits around Lanier quite a bit.
There's still guys who do it now. I think it might be making a resurgence, but I think we kind of went through a period that didn't need it as well. But it's one of those things where if you get the right conditions, I think you could still go smash them on it. But in high school and like earlier in college, I threw his spinner bait a lot. And my thing with it was I'd always throw it during the herring spawn. And I still throw it during the herring spawn to like find where the herring are at, because they'll tick your blades and follow it in and whatnot. But it was a really good bait, especially if you had clouds and like heavy wind. You could catch some freaking monster spots on that thing. And there's not much more fun than a 4-pound spot hitting a spinner bait and ripping the rod out of your hand. So he makes it really, like, you look at the colors and stuff, and you can burn that thing. And as long as it's tuned right, it runs straight as an arrow. So it was a really good bait.
I've had the worst luck going fishing the last couple of weeks. Every day I've been able to go because I work midnights and 40 to 60 hours a week, and so and I've been getting forced over and stuff like that. So stick to the guiding, if you could pay the bills that way. But anyway, I've been like, I watch the weather every day. I'm like, man, I can't wait to get some clouds and some wind. I can't wait to burn spinnerbait because they will still bite it here. Oh, and I'm fishing for largemouth or smallmouth, and you're right. When you're reeling 8-to-1 reel fast and one hits it, it's not like a tap. They about to take the rod from you.
Yeah. I like that y'all have over there too, like up on like the bars and stuff. I wish I had places I could do that more, but the closest I've got to it was Logan Martin this year. I had a bar I was catching them on in the morning, like this deep with a freaking spook, and that crap's fun too. Like just hucking it as far as you can, and that's fun. I wish I lived over there and could do that some.
Well, I apologize if I didn't realize if you'd fished Kentucky Lake before. But
no, I captained some kids there for a high school championship back in the day, but I haven't fished it.
It's coming back. We had the Asian influx of carp, and it was not fun. In fact, I contemplated just quitting fishing there for a bit, and then I kind of got into social media YouTube thing, and I just bought a boat again about a month and a half ago. So I'm kind of having to relearn everything. We got live scope, and the mapping's so good. And I'm like, looking at the map the other day, and I'm like, man, I can't believe it's showing this. I won't never tell nobody about this, but it's there.
It's got some impressive weights in the last couple of tournaments. I know that, some big smallmouth. So seems like it's come back pretty well.
I tell you what, it's really good at right now is if we had a drum tournament, we could put up some dynamite drum numbers. I just can't keep them off of it.
Every time I go to the TVA, I end up catching a couple of drum. It doesn't matter which one it is.
Well, speaking of the Elite Series, let's talk about a little bit about next year, Emil. How excited are you And what is one or two tournaments that you've already checked off? Like, man, I'm going to really focus on this one, or this really sets up for my fishing.
Yeah. Man, I'm pretty excited for all of them. I mean, obviously the one everyone thinks is Hartwell because I won my first tournament there. I won the All-American there. It's probably my favorite lake in the country. But not to make an excuse, the 1 month I don't like tournament fishing there is April, and that's the only time they go. So I'm not saying I couldn't have a good event there, but they'll be on the bed and stuff, and it'll just be, hodgepodge, whatever. But I'm really excited for that 10 killer event. I know nothing about it, but I just feel like, we're going to be well into the post spawn. I looked at it on Google Earth. I like the way it sets up. Like, I'm just excited for that one. I don't know why. I could bomb there, but I feel like I'll be able to figure something out.
Yeah. So one of my good friends is Matt Robertson. He's done pretty well on Lake Hartwell. And matter of fact, I would almost say that's his second home lake because he lives here part time. He lives with his girlfriend her wife, and lives over there. I've never been there, but it's interesting you say April is the time you want to go. To me, that would be when I want to go because I'd want to see them. I'm not good at the blueback herring deal.
So it's the perfect time to go if you don't fish the lake because you can just go fish shallow and catch them, which it's hard when you've fished the lake your whole life and so much to just go burn the bank with like a Senko or bed fishing or whatever. It's hard for me because I just have spent I've idled every inch of that place. And I just, when I'm on Hartwell, I want to be offshore, whether it's calling them up, ditch fishing with a worm or a jig or something. But late April, I'll probably try to find a herring spawn, but for whatever reason on Hartwell, whenever I find a herring spawn, they're that big. On Lanier, I can catch monsters, but I don't know. I haven't got along too well with that place in that time of year, but maybe we'll change it next year.
It's interesting. You said 10 killer too is one you're looking forward to. That's a lake that hadn't been on the schedule in a long time. I can't remember the last event over there.
I remember watching the live coverage when they were there in 2018 or something like that. And it just looked cool. Like there was smallmouth in it. It's clear. It's deep. I had a good event at Table Rock last year, so I feel like it might be similar to that. I'm just, like I said, I don't know anything about it, but I'm just excited for it.
Sorry, I'm checking for raindrops. I was explaining it live. I've got a leak somewhere in my bait room, and I just had a new roof, so I'm kind of upset about this deal. And
that's like the worst room you could have a leak in, too.
Yeah. Well, all these baits in here, so I got to get somebody over here. But Hellabass said Carl Jacobson won last time on 10 Giller. Mr. Hellabass, I think you've been on his channel. Good friend of mine. He'll be streaming here in about an hour. That'll be about our cutoff time. There's a lot of changes to the Elite Series. I know we're not talking about baits, but we just ramble around here. How do you feel about the no entry fee deal right now?
So
there's not a wrong answer, by the way. To this
right. I'm not mad about it, but I'm also not happy about it because pretty much all it is it takes the risk out of it. You know what I mean? But you're also, if you have a good year, which, it's tough because you look at pretty much all the guys in the top 40, they would have, for the most part, made less money under this new format. And it helps the guys who have tough years. But it's really no different than if you imagine a local tournament. You need guys to pay entries to make money. You need guys to lose if you want to make money. That's just how it works. You know what I mean?
True.
Not that you want to just take everyone's money, but at the end of the day, it's it's part of the sport is throwing up your money so you can win it or someone else can win it. So I don't know. I'm sure there'll still be some side pots or I'm sure something will come up, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not real hot about it. It's not like I'm pissed, but I would have been fine with the way they had it before. Cause you finish 30th all year, have a really good year. You're still making, 50 something grand after paying expenses.
Well, I kind of look at professional poker because at the end of the day, it's still gambling. I mean, there's no guarantee you're going to catch fish. I mean, we're fishing for wild animals here. And poker, it's really a game. There's some skill to it. Don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, it's a gamble. You can't predict which card's coming out. I mean, basketball, football, baseball.
Yeah.
There's the only variable maybe is the weather and whether you're going to be on your game or not. But I don't fault Bass for trying something new. And
I agree.
Again, in a way, they put 45 grand back in their pocket. If you can have good sponsor relations where you're getting that money for entry fees, you can use that money for other stuff. Maybe you don't have a high bill at Tackle Warehouse anymore. You can buy plenty of baits for the year. You know what I'm saying? But
yeah, like I said, it's not the end of the world by any means.
No.
And it's a really good, the concept itself is really good. So if they're able to pump some more money in it year after year, it's a really good thing. If it stays where it's at right now, I don't know. I wouldn't love it, but I
agree. I think it's got to evolve a little bit. Let's run a first year trial, see how that goes. What if we attract some more non-endemic sponsors that put more money in this thing? And all of a sudden now, instead of 40th place is $500, 40th is $1,500. No entry fees. Then it starts making a little bit more sense.
Or even, I think if we could get to a place where 40th is $5,000, because then that's pretty much the same as a 10K check before. Then I think we're in a pretty good, a good spot. But I don't know. I don't know how much money Bass makes. I don't know if, I don't know any of that stuff. So maybe.
Yeah, me either. They're a private company. They don't have to share all that stuff. But it's made for a different aspect of fishing next year. And I think where I'm coming from in that is now that you got guys that they're not having to spend that entry fee money, they may be fishing a little bit different. They may be more fishing to win instead of fishing to get into the check line.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But you still got the classic though. So I thought the same thing. And I think you will see that, but I guess you still can't go too crazy because if you go bomb a few, you won't be at the classic.
So that seems to be where the money's made. Making the classic, make a top 10, and finish high in the AOY. Other than that, like you said, you could finish 35th all year and only make 800 or $8,000 or something like that. So it's kind of wild, but that's the gambling aspect of it.
Pretty much we get to free roll a little bit. It's still, the year's still going to cost $20,000, in expenses, but you kind of get a little bit of a shot to just show up and, if you catch them, cool. If not the end of the world, I guess.
Now, have you thought about fishing any of the NPFL events or anything, or you just already got what you're going to fish and I can't add no more?
If they let you cherry pick them, I would, but there's no way I'm fishing that whole. No disrespect to their league, but the entry fee is like $5,500 and seconds $20,000.
Right.
Given, I guess there's only 80 boats, but I'd rather go fish a Toyota, $1,800 and seconds 25,000. So I'm going to fish either the Northern Toyotas or that Series 2 Rayburn, and they go to Eufaula. But I want to get, like I said, to the Toyota Championship, so I'm going to fish some of those. I think I'm going to fish an invitational on Hartwell and an invitational on Smith, and I'm going to try to fish a division of BFLs, get to a regional, back to All-American. So between that, I don't think I can fit anything else. But
what I'd really like to see is, everyone talks about BPT and MLF. Toyotas are awesome. I think the Toyotas are probably some of the best ran tournaments in the country. Lots of participation. Guys have fun. You pay a little bit higher entry fee. As with everything, the payouts aren't perfect, but you get a lot of participation, so you get more money in there. They go to good lakes. I want to see MLF make the All-American great again. That was the tournament that turned around the careers for so many guys. Before there was the Toyota Championship and this and that, it was you fish the Redmans and you make the All-American. If you make the All-American, you win it. It was like instant. Your career just really took off.
It helped me a lot, I will say. But I have heard, and I never got to go to one back in the day, but I heard it used to be like the Forest Wood Cup damn near. But I will say I thought they did a pretty good job. Now I didn't get to see what it was like before, but that tournament did a lot for me. It was special. That's why I want to go back.
I think it's the hardest tournament in the country to win. just to get there to qualify
Getting there is
for the
tough.
All Americans.
Last
It's
year, I
tough.
tried to get back. Tried to get back last year, and I finished 7th, one spot out. And I mean, it's hard just to get to that tournament, and then you finally get there, and it's all these regional hammers. A lot of them have the ability to be on the elites and the Bass Pro Tour,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to beat these guys who have, a lot of them have been doing it their whole life. But yeah, it's a special one. My buddy Paul won it this year, so he lives on Lanier. So the last two have come back to Lanier, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. Why is Lanier such a hotbed, or the Atlanta area, for fishermen right now? I mean, you have a lot of guys that's come out of that area that have turned into great fishermen, and not just this young generation, the older generation. Tom Mann was from around there. My buddy
Matt
Ron.
O'Connell right now, he's killing it too. Dude, I think Lanier's just it's kind of like what I said earlier. I think it's that high. It teaches you to just fish really high percentage stuff all the time if you fish it right. And like I said too, they're really freaking hard to catch. Like, you might not think of it when you see some of the weights, but we have a really stout local tournament crowd, and dude, the fish have just gotten really pressured. They're hard to catch, and you really have to game plan to do good in tournaments. And it's taught me how to fish shallow, how to fish deep, in between, and just be really efficient. I think that's been the biggest thing for me.
Do you fish any other places other than Lanier? I think Altoona's pretty close. Do you
I
fish
got
any
him
of that other stuff?
Altoona.
Yeah, that's kind of where Mike Buca's from, and that's really where he designed that bull shad at, was Altoona. I fished another lake in Georgia one time, Oconee. Did I say that right?
I just fished a BFL there, the last one they had.
Was that you pretty much largemouth fishing on that deal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of docks. There's a good amount of like shoreline, like I don't know what they call it, like peanut grass and stuff. You throw frog a lot. You can really do whatever you want there. There's some offshore fish too, but I always enjoy going there because it's like a junk fisherman's dream. But
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the worm. You said you like throwing a worm. What's that? What's your favorite worm? Whether it's Texas rig, drop shot, wacky rig, walk me through. You don't have to show them. I might have some here, but
these two heads, I got them right here.
All right.
That's a skip gap, and this is just a Berkeley Fusion shaky head. And it's not a sponsor plug. It's the ones I threw before I was with them. Berkeley General and a Maxcent General, or a Maxcent Magnum Hitworm. One of those two. When you throw that General on there, it twirls on the fall, and a bunch of them will eat it on the fall. But if I had to pick one, it'd probably be that General. And I throw an 1/8, a 3/16, and a 1/4. Pretty simple, honestly. It's more about how you fish it. Like a lot of guys overwork the bait, and it's kind of like if you take a crankbait. Like, guys are like, oh, that's simple. You throw it out there and reel it in. There's a lot that goes into doing it correctly. You know what I mean? So it's you got to spend some time with it and have a good feel with it. But it is a deadly bait for spotted bass. I throw it a bunch.
That reminds me, years ago, Brent Ayler told me about a rig called the Dinko, where he was putting like a 16th ounce or 8th ounce shaky head on a Cinco. Well, I've done it up here, and it's funny you talked about it, that spirals when it falls. It absolutely does that.
Yeah.
And of course, I catch a lot of dinks on it, but when you need a bite here, a bite, you can throw that around a brush pile, and if there's one there, it's going to eat it.
100%. And it's weird when I'm on largemouth lakes, or like I always use Eufaula as an example. I fish there a decent bit. I really like that hitworm, but when I'm around spotted bass, dude, there's something about that General and how it falls. They freaking eat it.
Are you a believer in the max scent? Do you think that makes a difference?
100%. I've seen it. Like,
I'm not a huge scent guy, but I can honestly say, and I'm not sponsored by Berkeley or anything, but I like the General for the fact that it's got the max scent availability, or you can get it in the power bait. Dude, I've thrown a power worm for years out here. I'm telling you, there's certain times of the year you can throw an old monster and a power worm side by side, and that power worm gets bitten. I think it's because of the scent.
Yeah, and I think too, my philosophy, I used scent a lot in high school, when I first got into it. And my philosophy's always been, it can't hurt, in the sense that we're always touching, like, I don't smoke cigarettes, but if you smoke cigarettes, you're touching that, or two-stroke
Mm-hmm.
oil in the back, or when you're pumping gas in the morning. I think when you get stuff like that on your worm, that can truly hurt. You know what I'm saying? So it can cancel out any bad scent that you put on your bait, sunscreen, whatever it might be. So I think more than anything, it just gives me confidence that there's nothing on that bait that's going to make the fish not want to eat.
Oh, guys, a few questions here in chat here. I don't stunt. He wants to know, talk about Chattooga or Burton. Isn't that the Rat Lake?
Yeah, that's where Tom Frink, that famous rat catch, that's probably what you're thinking of, where he threw it up
Mm-hmm.
there on the bank in that college championship.
Yep.
Yeah, they used to throw rats over there a bunch. I've only fished there a handful of times, actually. Some of my really good friends live up there, but it fishes Lake Lanier or anywhere else. Burton's incredible. I mean, it used to be a secret, but it's a little more talked about now. But if I want to have some fun and go catch them the easy way, you go to Burton. I don't know why it gets fished a decent bit now too, but they're some of the dumbest fish ever.
I like dumb fish. That's the ones I do good at catching because if they're smart,
Yeah,
I'm out.
yeah, me too.
Caleb, here's a good question. When you're fishing for spots all over the country, do you fish the same kind of areas? Are you looking for the same stuff?
Yeah.
He's want to know heavy chunk rock, rocky points, etc. Is there certain areas that you're like, this is where spotted bass should live?
Yeah. On a herring lake, yeah. It's, if I'm dealing with spotted bass on Eufaula or Table Rock, it's a little bit different. But generally speaking, they like to suspend. So if there's timber in the lake, I've caught some big ones on Eufaula over the timber out there where you'd never think. I mean, muddy water and stuff. But if there's timber, brush, rock piles, they like just high percentage offshore stuff. I know that's a really
Mm-hmm.
roundabout answer, but they like suspending over just high percentage stuff out there. And if you're on a herring lake, I mean, a lot of your places that butt up near the main channel, they're going to get fished a lot, but that's a lot of times where your biggest population of big ones are. But yeah, they roam a lot, they move a lot, and they suspend a lot. So you got to be willing to move around for them, and typically if they want to bite, it's going to go down pretty quick.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Let's see here. What else in yours is? Do you have any little secret baits or anything that maybe not a lot of people are talking about? And you don't have to mention if you say I want to hard pass. We can hard pass, but is there anything is there anything that's come out in the last year or two that you're like, I didn't use this, but now I find myself using it a lot?
In general, like anywhere?
Sure. Are you a dice bait guy? You throwing the dice bait?
Threw the dice for the first time yesterday.
Well, did you catch anything?
Caught one on it. I didn't like it. I didn't like it for what I was doing, but I had high hopes. I went out yesterday and rigged up 4 rods with stuff I'd like never thrown or hadn't thrown in a long time. Like I wanted to just try some new stuff, but no, I hadn't got on the dice. It's clearly a deal, but I'm trying to think. I mean, the glides, I started throwing that little clutch echo. That's a cool bait.
Man, everybody seems to be dialed in on the clutch. You see, they're throwing the eco, they're throwing the darter, the boss. Man, that guy's killing it. Evidently, his baits work really good. I've got an eco and I've thrown it some. It's got good action, but I just can't get
I'll
him.
say this: I found something yesterday I've never thrown in my life, and I smoked them on it, and I'm not telling a soul for a long time.
All right, we'll come back in like a year where some people's found out, and you can talk about it.
But no, there's a lot to be said for, like, I always tell people, like, they're like, how can I get better, or like, how can I win tournaments, whatever. Like, I always tell people, when you go out there and fun fish, don't go fish the same stuff you always do, and don't throw the same baits you always do, because it's like, you might learn something, but you're not gonna learn a whole lot. So when I go out, I try to fish new places and throw new baits, and, like, if anything, you get them out of your head so you're not thinking about them anymore, or you find something else to add to your repertoire.
Same guy asked the question: do you throw the credge a lot, or do you throw the twitcher? I guess that means jerk bait.
Yeah, dude, the credge. For whatever reason, I think a lot of guys think that thing's a gimmick, but I've caught some freaking huge spots on that thing. It's a really good bait, and if I wasn't sponsored by them, I wouldn't promote it like that. But dude, I've smashed them all. Like we've won some tournaments on it. It's a really cool bait. You can if they're willing to come up real good, you can fish it like you would a riser, like it just quivers on the surface. And dude, the coolest thing about it, you can throw that bait further than anything in your tackle box. I swear I'm not making that up. You tie that thing on 10 or 12 pound fluoro. I always have it on the deck for if they come up schooling. You know, they're always just out of range. But I can usually reach them with that thing. And it sinks too. So like if they're glued to a brush pile, you can get it down there behind them and then pull it over them and get them to react.
So do you work it like basically a reverse jerk bait at times? Like instead of, bring it to them and let it fall back in their face? Yeah. Is that how I'm understanding it?
I'll be honest with you. That's like obviously one of the main things they came out with it for. But for me, I work it really quick, like on a herring lake. Like the fish over here, like if they see a bait for too long, they're usually not going to eat it. So I don't like, I'm getting it down there. And once they're on it, I'm real hot trying to get them to eat it. Like I don't want them to see it for more than half a second.
Interesting. Now I'm going to have to go to Tackle Warehouse and buy a couple. Speaking of Tackle Warehouse, I'm pretty sure they just opened a retail store in Alpharetta. Have you had a chance to get over there? I know Hammond's is right down the road. That's an awesome place too. I loved Hammond's. I'd love to go back in there. Are you a tackle nut? Do you spend a lot of times like going in stores looking for off the wall things?
Yeah, maybe not to the extent of some guys, but the last 2 or 3 years I've bought a gross amount of tackle, like way too much. But you start traveling. The problem is you start traveling and you're like, this is a new world. I need everything. And then you show up and it's like, well, I didn't need 90% of that, but
yeah, I just need my green pumpkin Cinco.
Yeah, exactly. You end up, but I mean, you keep it and hopefully a tournament down the road, it pays off. But no, I haven't been to Tackle Warehouse yet. I want to. One of my really good buddies works there, but I've been to going to Hammond since I was little, and I know all those people really well. So I usually go there, and they're a mom and pop shop, so it's that place. If anyone watching gets the chance to go there, it's an incredible tackle store. I mean, it's like I always describe it to people as if you took Bass Pro Shops and took all the BS out of it, like all the stuff nobody throws. That's Hammond.
Yeah,
it's got everything.
It was a long time when I was in there, but I wasn't in there long. But I was like, "Whoa, this place, it's amazing!" And they were one of the first stores I can remember really carrying a lot of swim baits, whether it was
100%.
glide baits, but they carry a lot of herring style swim baits. I believe there's a bait called a sweet baits, if you know what I'm talking about. And stuff that's
$15.
Yeah, stuff that's made to mimic a blueback herring, specific swim bait. I got a friend, Rob Jordan. You know who Rob is? Extreme Lure Creations, man. He makes some awesome stuff, but a lot of his stuff is catered, to that blueback herring bite.
Yeah, Rob. He was, he used to kind of, I guess, be the younger guy that I guess I am now. But I always watched his stuff growing up and whatnot. But he does some badass paint jobs, that's for sure. And he's got some cool little new baits coming out, a lot of obviously herring specific stuff, but yeah, he does good work.
Well, I've kind of avoided it, but we got to talk about it. We got to talk about forward facing. How much, you said you grew up fishing Lanier, so you didn't just born a scoper, you had to learn it too. How much did that change? And what you've learned about spotted bass fishing there on Lanier, was it like, oh, wow, they're doing this when I thought they were doing that? Or are you just running around fishing the same stuff, but then trying to point out and find individual fish?
Yeah. So I remember right before it really came out and got kind of hot, I had just like really dialed in the topwater brush bite. Like I'd done it for years, but I was always like, you do all right in a tournament or whatever, but never where I was like, I'm gonna go out and win this thing doing it. And I had just figured it out like really well, like all the little intricacies, getting a good range ring on your graph, getting up on your waypoints, perfect casts every time, all that stuff. And it came out and I got it. I put it on my boat and I literally didn't even look at it for like a year. I didn't get it. I didn't really like it. I was like, yeah, I don't need this. And then finally one day I was like, I'm just going to go out here and mess with this thing for like a week. And then I was like, okay, yeah, you've been missing out. So now that it's been out for so long, and I don't care what anyone says, everyone's got it on their boat. it doesn't matter if you're at an elite event, a local derb, 95% of the boats have it now. And the fish act totally different than they did before we all had that stuff. Like before, you could go out there with a big chrome pencil popper. Like pencil poppers were huge. Didn't matter if it was dead calm. And if you got around them, like they were not that many people threw at them because they didn't know where they were at. And if you made a cast in their, general vicinity, if you were 20 feet right, 20 feet left, where that brush pile was, they'd go out of their way and come destroy it. Now you can pull up to the best school on the lake. There can be 150 of them. You can make a perfect cast with the perfect bait and not one of them will touch it. So it's like what I always tell people is they've gotten a lot easier to target, but way harder to catch. So it's like, it's not like we just have this stuff now and you can see them and boop, throw over there and catch them. That's the furthest from the truth. But man, I really, really enjoy using it, but I also really enjoy, like, we had that TAA this year, that no scope tournament, and I really enjoyed that too. It was a nice change of pace. So I don't know. I really like both of them. I don't really care what happens. If they do a 50-50 schedule one day, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, me too. So, like, obviously, I bought me a Triton a month or two ago. It's not brand new, but I've got active target one on it. And everyone's like, "Oh, you got to have two and all this." I'm like, I just want to mess with it. So I've scoped a few fish the other day, I guess was what you call it. But I'm fishing stuff that I was used to throwing a football jig or a worm on, make 5 casts. If they're there, you're going to get a bite quick.
Yep.
And now I see fish there, and I'm sitting over there with my silly minnow bait in front of their face. I'm like, Randy Blockett told me this is easy. Well, ain't they jumping in the boat? And so I'm actually starting to see them. And so I see this fish turn, and it looks at my minnow, and I see its tail. So, well, that's a good one. And all of a sudden, it goes, and it hits it so hard, I about fall out of the boat, on my spinning rod. I'm not very good with spinning rod. And it ends up being a drum. And I'm thinking, man, I hope I just didn't graph up a school drum. But it's not easy, man. I'm fishing the same kind of stuff, but now I'm using these finesse techniques, and I'm almost at the point where, man, somebody lied to me. I thought this was cheating, and they're just going to jump in the boat. There's a lot to it.
I think the biggest misconception too is, like, I think a lot of people who haven't used it or maybe aren't super in tune with what's going on in the tournament world is they think that every time guys are scoping them, they're out in the middle throwing out a suspended fish with a minnow. That's really a very special case scenario. Like, I haven't got to do that. I think one tournament, Ouachita, I got to do that where they were truly just out there in the middle. But I mean, for me, at least most of the time, you're still fishing a brush pile or a rock pile or something like that you'd fish before scope too. Now you can just make a really good cast on them. You can see what's going on quicker, and you can throw baits at them that, you weren't able to before. You could, but it wouldn't have made much sense. But
I think, you made a good point there. It allows you to make a perfect or great cast where normally, even when I would mark a brush pile, old school, I throw that marker buoy out there. That always between the boat and where I want to cast. I never put or behind when I want to throw it. That way I know I'm making that right cast. Not so much marking the structure.
I used them too, believe it or not. I used to use marker buoys quite a bit.
I think I'm going to bring it back. I think I'm going to start throwing them out.
Dude, that'd be badass on Bass Live. You're out there with an orange marker buoy.
So we used to use them night fishing. What I figured out, they used to make those marker buoys that were styrofoam. And you could drill out a hole in them and take a light stick, the ones you crack open. You could put that light stick in there, crack it open, kind of tape it so it don't fall out. You'd be night fishing. Cool. You throw that sucker out there. Well, it never failed. Some drunk in a pontoon would roll by you about 11 o'clock at night. Oh, I didn't know what that was glowing in the middle of the lake there. I thought it was a UFO or something. It's just remarkably glowing. Dude, to be honest with you, that probably would have been a really good idea and probably could have made a lot of money selling marker buoys that you could have a device to insert that light stick. But now no one uses them anymore.
Live scope ruined it. Live scope ruined everything.
Yeah, I think if you make a bass live and you're fishing offshore, I think if you threw out a marker buoy, you got to do that. Throw out the marker buoy, people would go insane. The old school guys would love it. That
would be hilarious. If I remember it, I'll do it.
but yeah, fishing's changed. But I'm glad you said that. If it was a 50-50, I'd love it because I still enjoy old school fishing. I like throwing a crankbait, a flat side, a spinner bait. I want to catch fish too, but obviously you're passionate about it. Anything else you're looking forward to in the Elite Series next year, other than probably winning one?
No, I mean just dude, just getting to experience it. Like I said, I've been watching it since I was a kid, and I guess it's nice not still trying to qualify for the classic, but at least you're not, chasing trying to get to a league, you're where you want to
Mm-hmm.
be. But I enjoyed the crap out of the opens and everything else too. But nah, man, I'm excited for it all. I'm excited to get to meet a bunch of those guys, get to talk to them, see what everyone's all about, and just the whole thing. I don't know, it's just gonna be fun.
Yeah, so I take it you don't deer hunt when it's the fall. You're still fishing.
I'm guiding and fishing tournaments. I'll go hunting if a buddy invites me, but dude, if I got into hunting on top of this, it would be a major problem. I don't know. I feel like I can barely balance fishing, so it's like if I got
Yeah,
into hunting,
it's probably a good thing you don't live where I live in Western Kentucky, where we actually have big deer. They
yeah,
don't grow near as big in Georgia. There's some good ones. I know Drew Benton's killed a few good ones. Here's a good question. Speaking of forward facing, so I like to educate people.
yeah,
Caleb says, "How far are you setting the distance with your forward facing sonar, and are you using that to find cover versus traditional like side scan?"
yep. So I run mine from 100 to 120 always. If I'm herring fishing, usually 120. If I'm anywhere else, usually 100. I like staying as far off of them around here as I can, and that's kind of the reasoning for that. But I find bonus structure with the scope a lot. Like you just happen to see it, but I put hours and hours and hours on my side scan almost everywhere I go. That's how I find 90% of the stuff before you obviously pull up and look at it with live scope. But no side scan. It's like the least talked about thing anymore, but that's still how we're all finding everything. It's kind of
That
funny.
10 years ago, that was cheating.
Yeah.
15 years ago, I heard the down all that down image and side scan. Not going to fish no more tournaments till they ban that. Those same guys got forward facing sonar now.
Yeah. I love side scan. Like I said, if I'm looking for a school on a ledge, I mean, if you're idling down a big flat looking for brush piles, like you cannot be efficient enough doing that on live scope. So there's obviously some guys out there who just, I think it's very few guys, but I know a few, seems like Drew Gill, from what I've heard, like he literally puts his trolling motor down and like tries to catch every fish he sees. But I think most of us, at least me and a lot of, the guys I know pretty well, like we're fishing like high percentage targets every time we stop. You know what I mean? So it's something you found and something what you're pulling up the fish. And that's kind of more my style. So I find all that on side scan.
Ella Bass wants to know: do you think the 16-volt helps you pick up your bait further out on forward facing sonar?
Dude, I've heard people say that there's no difference. I've heard people say there's a huge difference. I've run it for 2 years now, and my thing with it is it can't hurt, and I never have any voltage drop. I mean, it's always up there above 15, 16 volts, and I feel like my units are a little quicker, and it gives me good peace of mind. So I'd have to do a true side by side. I'm not going to sit here and be like it looks a million times better and just try to sell it, but I love it. I mean, I'm going to run one as long as I got a boat.
So, pardon me if I didn't pay attention enough. Are you a Lowrance guy, Humminbird, Garmin, or do you have an electronic sponsor?
I don't use all three.
There you go. You're seeing a lot of guys do that, by the way. Like
Yeah,
John Cruz's big thing was, I'm going to use what I want. I'm going to pay out of my pocket, but I want the best out of each unit. I've always thought Lowrance down imaging and side imaging was really good. Now, obviously, stuff from Humminbird, their side imaging is amazing. Garmin's DI and SI is really good. And
yeah,
then
it's
you get the guy,
underrated.
yeah. And then you get guys that, well, if you're not using a Garmin live scope, you're behind. But then you got Jacob Wheeler over here using active target and kicking
Right,
everybody's tail.
right, and hey man, Connell, but yeah, I think they've all kind of got their advantages. I run two Lowrances for waypoint management. I fish offshore so much, especially around here. I'm always moving, so I drop a lot of waypoints in a day. So I want to be able to drop a waypoint, change the icon, and literally, I make so many. I'll name them the stupidest stuff just because it'll register in my head when I pull up. and like I can waypoint, change the icon, and literally type out a sentence on that Lowrance, and I've got it done in 10 seconds. Whereas, the Humminbird, I use the Helixes, so it's their base models, and it takes a little longer on those, but that's a big deal for me. So I run those 2 Lowrances for that. I've got my Humminbird for side scan. I think their side scan's unbeatable, and the Lowrance, I use their down scan, and then I've got the Garmin for live scope.
That's pretty.
Oh, and the Humminbird, the maps, the Lake Master is incredible. And I don't know if my eyes are just trained to it, but that's all I can use.
Yeah, so I've got 3 Lowrances, 2 12 lives, and a 9 live, and that's what I kind of grew up. I was always on the X15, X17, the 332 Lowrances.
Yeah, I grew up using those HDSs too.
Yeah. Now, Matt Robertson to tell you, and I'll tell you too, the old school HDS 10 and down imaging was the best that's ever been out. As far as identifying a bass, that would tell you that's a bass. Like I can pick them out on that, and I've graphed a lot of big fish on those. But as far as like getting around a brush pile and there'd be like 2 or 3 sitting around, man, it was so good at that. Now I like this HDS 12 live. I like the down imaging and whatnot, and I've been out of the game for a while, so for me to go out and side scan and find some stuff, it was really rewarding. The first day I went on the lake in my boat, I scanned over a brush pile, and I was like, man, there's 3 or 4 fish. Man, we'll try it. Throw a drop shot out there and hook right up. I was like, now that's cool.
That's so satisfying. I don't care what anyone says. You're out there graphing and idling for hours, and you're like, this sucks. And then you find some sneaky little high percentage something, and you see them, and maybe you get bit if you're practicing, or it's the tournament, and you catch them. Like, there's nothing more satisfying to me.
Yeah, and I think it's more than just electronics deal. If you ever get that intuition, like, man, can't wait to go out this morning, I'm going to tie on this Magnum top water, or I want to run in this spot I hadn't fished in years. And you go out there, make 5 casts, and we get that blow up. It's part of like, I put the puzzle together. I got a piece that fit. That gives you some satisfaction, no matter which way you're doing it. I think that's what a lot of anglers, deep down, that's what they want, whether it's in a tournament or just fun fishing. You want to know that whatever you thought was going to work, it worked. Nothing's worse than going out there like I was the other day, and I'm going to do this, going to do that, and it doesn't work, and then I'm out here in 30 foot of water shaking a minute.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because, like, I think a lot of people think the best part's catching them. And don't get me wrong, in a tournament, if you're just catching big ones, that is awesome. But for me, the funnest part of a tournament, like when I look back on the year, is like the process of finding them. And that moment you figure it out, like, and you're like, all right, I got it. Like that part's the most fun to me, for sure.
Yeah, especially, when you win an Elite Series event, you go, man, I really put the whole dang thing together. So
that would be crazy.
There's a lot of guys. If there was an app for betting on bass fishing like there is every other sport, I think there'd be a lot of money coming on you to win a couple of these events.
I don't know.
I think that's what you got to do to get bass fishing to the next level. Is you got to get Vegas involved.
I could get behind it. I'd be throwing out bets,
dude. I mean,
louder, but like I would know who's on them and throw some money out.
Yeah. You didn't need to be the Pete Rose of bass fishing. We don't want that.
Yeah, there you go.
But think about it. You could bet on big bass. You could bet on heaviest catch day 1, 2, 3, 4, overall weight. Keep it simple because
there's line like a top 50 or something. Yeah.
Really. There's just there'd be too many prop bets out there, and biggest smallmouth, smallest smallmouth, smallest limit. I've looked into it. I'd like to just start my own. I mean, what's stopping me?
Do it. It might be, probably a lot of paperwork and stuff.
I don't like paperwork. That's the problem. I'd have to have someone do it.
But I'm saying it's also the only sport, I'd assume, that you can interfere with the competitors.
Right.
So if you got a guy with $100,000 on someone to miss the cut.
And then you got a guy from Happy Gilmore running out there in his jumbo. Come on, jackass!
Yeah, you'd have all kinds of crap going on, but
yeah,
I could get behind it for sure.
Well, before we get off here, I always like to do about an hour and a half, usually before Hell Bass. If there's any young anglers or guys that are aspiring to be Elite Series anglers, what is one tip you could give them that would help in their fishing or ability to find fish?
Yeah. I'd say two things. The first one's like the most obvious over said thing, but it could not be more true. Like it's just the truth. But fish as much as you possibly can and don't focus on sponsors. Don't focus on, I mean, yeah, focus on winning tournaments, but just spend your youth just learning as much as you can. Like in high school, our dads didn't fish, but even if, we couldn't go to a tournament, we'd go pond fish. We'd go fish a river near the house. Just always go fish and try to learn while you can. And number two, it's like, high school fishing's gotten so big and there's a lot of, I don't know what you want to call it, drama, whatever in the fishing world, but try to do things the right way. Like that's something I've personally tried to do my whole career. You know, always make sure you're following the rules, be respectful to people on the water, like all that stuff. That stuff doesn't get talked about enough, in my opinion, and it's super important. So just try to do things the right way and just spend as much time on the water as you can.
Dude, I agree with that. Like, we focus too much on the drama aspect of fishing for us professionally, or people with YouTube vids, the cops are called, or angry
Yeah,
Karen. We don't see enough of the good side. We don't see a lot of videos of that pro angler that's at the boat ramp and he's talking to these kids in high school and he's handing them some baits or giving them a spool of line,
100%.
marking the mat for them. I've seen pro guys, man, come right over the boat and pull up their Lowrance map and said, "Hey guys, you're going out for fun. Here, go this way point and that way." You
100%.
don't
Yeah.
see that, and uh, you know,
But it happens all the time. I mean, I see people at the ramp all the time. Give them some baits if they need them. Especially if you meet a kid or just try to help people out. It's a good
people
sport. A lot of good
people
people.
remember the drama, but for a young kid, he will always remember
Yeah,
you being courteous and stuff like of all these pros and stuff I interview. A lot of them always talk about, well, I met, Jay Ellis at a boat show when I was 13, and he showed me how he set up his jig or trimmed it up. And
yeah,
or I met Mark Menendez and he showed me how he weighted a rogue and stuff like that. That that's what inspires these young guys to go the extra mile and be big fishermen, not pulling up some dude on Instagram just talking about people fighting on the water. Now, don't get me
right,
wrong, I'll watch that stuff too,
right.
but
Yeah.
um,
Now there needs to be. We definitely need more as much positivity in the sport as we can get right now. But yeah, it's a lot of these kids too. A lot of people don't realize it, but like even though a lot of us, we're not big names or anything, we're just fishermen. But like to some of these kids that come up and meet you, they might be hardcore fans, and
mm-hmm.
they might have watched you for a while. So it's always try to make a good impression on them. That might be a big deal to them. So
Absolutely, man. Well, I got to work tonight, and we're going to wrap things up. And we'll say this: I told Cooper over at Waterland 6 Cents I was going to have you on. He was all ecstatic. He said, he is salt of the earth. He's an awesome fisherman, and
Cooper's a good dude.
yeah, man, Coop's the deal. He told me he's out. He said, "You're still on the Waterland 6 Cents team the next couple of years." So I said, "All right, that's good because I didn't want to have to buy a bunch of new clothes."
Dude, I know. I know. If any sponsors I lose at this point, I'm gonna have to throw away like 15 shirts.
Yeah, I've been with them for a long time, and he's a good dude. And the fishing deal on YouTube's really slowing down. The views and everything, it's going crazy. Part of it's my fault because I don't upload once or twice a week, if that. But
It's hard when you got a job and a family. So
yeah, I make a lot more money at my job than I do fishing. I'll promise you that. But I also work a lot harder and don't have as much fun. But
right.
Emil, I really appreciate you being on the show, and hopefully we'll get more viewers. Sometimes these things pop off afterwards. People like to listen on their iPhone or whatnot. My daughter's in here, and she's got makeup on. No, I don't. Okay, but Emil, reach out to me anytime. I'll
Yeah.
fix this water
Thank you.
leak. If you ever find any cool baits and stuff, you want to jump back on here. Hopefully, after you win an Elite Series event, we could do a follow up.
Yeah, dude. I'll come on anytime. I think a lot of guys maybe don't like the podcast, but I love doing them. So I'll talk fishing anytime you want.
Dude, I appreciate that. Guys, make sure you go follow Emil on social media on Instagram. Do you have a YouTube channel?
I do. It's got quite a few older videos on it, but I'm paying a camera guy next year, and I'm going to start doing a lot on my own side of things. So
There
keep
you
a
go.
lookout for that. We'll have it going.
Awesome. Guys, follow Emil. Good luck on the Elite Series. I'll definitely be following you. And, when you do good, I'll slide in the DMs, give you some big thumbs up. So, guys, check Emil out. Make sure you guys, first time viewers, subscribe, share the link out. I got to go to work. You guys have a good evening.